I never realized how stupid Zelensky was. Either that or tutored out of his mind. I have no idea. I never knew this. I had no idea. I mean, this was an absolute, still a catastrophe. We're still debating this for Zelensky. This is the moment of pure humiliation that has not only exposed his weak hand, but also signaled to the rest of the world the end of his influence on the world stage. Instead of reading the situation and kind of securing an essential minerals deal, which we're talking about still, a deal with the United States with President Trump, Zelensky attempted to play politics, listening to, and here's the best part, I'm saying it again, anti-Trump Democrats who filled his already addled brain and head with delusions of grandeur and self-importance before sending him into the Oval Office to completely self-destruct. It's incredible. Zelensky wasn't just dismissed. He wasn't just asked to leave. He was tossed out, thrown out. With Trump and J.D. Vance making it abundantly clear that the days of blind and unconditional U.S. support for Ukraine's war effort are over. This wasn't an ambush by Trump like everybody's saying. This was Zelensky walking in with an agenda crafted by left-wing lunatic operatives who still haven't accepted that their party is no longer in power. But yet they got inside this guy's head. Senator Chris Murphy from Connecticut, oh, this genius, oh, the cretinous Chris, all but admitted it, bragging that Zelensky had been coached to reject any deal where Putin gets everything he wants, which translated to outright rejection of any pathway towards peace. Zelensky walked in with his talking points prepared by the very people who have spent years orchestrating one foreign policy disaster after another. And he left the White House with nothing, nada. No security agreements, no deal, and no path forward. His decision to insult and argue with President Trump and JD, as he called him, was pure, unmitigated madness. A public spectacle that did nothing but strengthen Russia's position, while all the while alienating the one country that still could make a difference in Ukraine's fate. And now, instead of reassessing his strategy, Zelensky has doubled down, running off to Europe with his tail between his legs, trying to find some kind of support among leaders who are already crumbling under their own domestic pressures. Britain's, oh, this genius, Starmer and Macron, they were scrambling to salvage something through the fallout. But their desperate push for a so-called stabilization force in Ukraine is nothing but a fantasy. Nobody believes that Europe can sustain a military presence in Ukraine without American backing. Everybody knows this. And Trump has already made it clear that he will not sign onto any plan whatsoever that drags the U.S. into another endless, mindless, insane war. Moscow and Putin will outright reject any Western-led force, and everyone knows it, including the Europeans who are floating the idea just to pretend that they're still in control of the situation. The reality is setting in. With Trump in charge, the war in Ukraine is winding down, whether Zelensky and his globalist handlers like it or not. The Biden-era strategy of providing just enough support, just that incremental enough support to Ukraine to prolong the war while refusing to pursue actual victory was never going to be sustainable. And Trump saw through it from day one. And now that the U.S. is walking away from the blank check approach, the Democrats and their media allies and the military-industrial complex and the war profiteers, they're flailing and they're screaming and they don't know what the hell to do because they're desperate to manufacture another Russian hoax or something to justify their warmongering. Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, the ever-pathetic Adam Schiff, and New York's clueless Governor Kathy Hochul, are already screeching and yipping and howling about how Trump is doing Putin's dirty work. This refrain again, because that's all they have left. They can't argue on substance. They can't justify their disastrous policies. So what they do is they resort to the same tried and tired and boring smears and libels and defamation that failed them before. And meanwhile, Zelensky is now the face of their failure, the tragic product of their incompetence, left out in the cold as the world moves on without them. His refusal to sign the minerals deal means that American business interests, listen to this, will have no stake in Ukraine, which would have been the best possible deterrent against Russian aggression. Trump's proposal, which included requiring Putin to return some of the occupied lands and bringing in European peacekeeping forces, nope. That was the best deal Zelensky was ever going to get. But he spit in Trump's face and threw it all away. And for what? For what? A security guarantee that was never going to happen? A dream of permanent U.S. intervention that was dead the moment Trump won? He was completely fooled. He misplayed his hand. And now Ukraine is paying the price because the rancid globalist ghouls are watching in horror as the geopolitical order shifts again towards Trump's leadership. With the potential U.S.-Russia reconciliation on the horizon and America First foreign policy taking shape, and the realization that their golden boy Zelensky has been exposed as nothing more than an ungrateful little twit, a pawn in their failed game. There's no recovering from this, sports fans. Zelensky can posture all he wants. He can make speeches, he can cry for help from European leaders, he can do whatever he wants. People who are already looking for an exit, they're done with him. But the reality is undeniable. Ukraine's war effort is collapsing. The Democrats' strategy has failed, and Trump is shaping the world order on his terms. The radical left and the globalist elite are in full-blown panic mode. And there is another thing to consider. There's nothing they can do. Nothing they can do to stop what comes next. The fallout from Zelensky's disastrous meeting with Trump has left the Ukrainian leader scrambling to salvage his dwindling credibility as the United States signals it is done bankrolling this stupid war. What should have been a diplomatic win turned into a complete humiliation, exposing Zelensky's weak and pathetic position and his utter inability to adapt to the changing reality of American foreign policy. Instead of securing further aid, instead of settling this, Zelensky found himself lectured, dismissed, and left with nothing but the bitter taste of rejection as President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance made it absolutely clear that the days of endless handouts are over, my friends. They are over. Remember what you saw. Remember what happened. We're going to be talking about this again because it'll take a very long time for us to really figure out ultimately what happened. It is still mind-blowing. Now, I want to hear from you. What do you think happened? What's your take? Comment as you see fit.